hello everybody. We are back with part 2, and now we're going to talk about more spiritual things. Move away from the spookier stuff, but more the spiritual stuff. So we are going to get straight into the questions. So again, thank you very much for your questions and your topics for this video. But I will hand you over to Kath.
Right then, first question on spirit guides came from Aubrey Law, and she wanted to know, is a spirit guide somebody we have known? Dan?
Okay,
Do you want to do that one? Or Dave?
Shall I go? Okay, so I'm going to say, it might sound quite controversial. No. Well, not somebody you knew physically in this life. It may be somebody you knew from a past life, but not necessarily someone that you knew from this life. Now, my reason behind that is, my thinking behind that is, to be a spirit guide, you have to have evolved to a certain level in the spirit world to be able to be a guide for somebody else. So that means going through numerous lives or learn numerous lessons, or whatever you want to call it. So your grandma is not necessarily going to be your guide. They may be part of your spirit team. I know my grandparents, they're all gone. They're part of my spirit team, but they're not my guides. My guides are people I've never met. Well, that I consciously have never met. I might say I've met them in past lives. So not, although it is a nice feeling to think that, you know, your grandparent or your mother or whoever else, father, might be your guide. The likelihood is, in my opinion, that they're probably not going to be it, unless their souls have progressed to a certain point in the spirit world, right? So that's my taking on it. And also, your spirit guide doesn't always have to be someone of some high esteemed position. So they don't always have to be a monk or a nun or a priest or a god or a Roman soldier or a Native American. And I think there's a lot of that in spiritualist churches. Oh, I can see a monk stood behind you. But that's not necessarily the case, right? It could just be a normal, ordinary person. Like one of my guides, Dolly, as maybe a lot of you may know, she was a housewife of 13 children who died in 1990. She's a normal person. She's not, you know, a god or whatever. So, but just don't get too, I would say, don't get too caught up in that. So there's a lot of that, to try and make all airy fairy and all this business, and that's really not the reality. So that's how I would answer that question. So thank you for that question.
Okay, kind of following in with that one, how do you connect with a spirit guide? Anybody?
How to connect with your spirit guide? It sounds cliche, and I say it all the time, but it's through meditation, because that is more empowering for people to find out who their guides are on their own terms, in their own way. And a lot of people do ask me, and I've, you know, mediums get asked a lot, who's my guide? Tell me who my spirit guide is. I can't tell you, and I won't tell you. And that's because I can't validate who your guide is. I mean, effectively, any medium could say to you what they wanted and say you've got a nun stood behind you. But how do you validate that? Because you don't know them. Whereas if I'm connecting to your spirit person, if I'm connecting to your grandma, we'll use grandma again. If I'm connecting to her, you know she existed, you know she lived. So whatever evidence I give you, you can say yes, 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 hopefully say yes. But if I said to you, you know, you've got, I don't know, a nun or whoever stood there, I can't prove that and can't validate that. So I personally don't tell people who their guides are, but the way to do it is through meditation. So you have to kind of master meditation to a point where you are comfortable enough to get out of your own head and just allow your thoughts to disappear and allow yourself to elevate to a certain level and trust what you're seeing, right? Trust is a big word. To give a quick example, so people know what the kind of process is like. I was meditating, it was last year. I was meditating, right? And I sat there, mind my own business, as you do. And I saw this man's face in my head. I thought, who on earth are you? So I saw his face and his nose, big old nose, like a Roman nose. And he started panning out, and the picture started panning out and out and out. And I just saw this outline of this man stood in a skirt. I thought, don't tell me I've got a drag queen for a spirit guide, honest to God. And And then I asked for more information. And it turns out, no, he was a Roman soldier. So I'm slightly contradicting myself, but he was a Roman soldier called Ricky. But that's just through my own process of just sitting, allowing myself to drift off, but to trust that I wasn't going insane, that I was actually getting that information coming through. So it really, as mad as it might sound, because mediumship is quite mad, trust what you are feeling, what you are seeing, because no one else can tell you what you feel and see. You know, people will say, "Oh, no, maybe you're a bit tired or stressed," or no, I'm not having hallucinations for no reason. I know what I'm feeling. So it's trusting yourself and allowing that trust to be there.
If I can just add on to that, Dave, because I totally agree with that. I would advise anyone go into maybe like a guided meditation for spirit guide connection initially starting off. Absolutely. But what I will say in addition is that sometimes people, especially newbies, have a real issue with engaging the visualization aspect and understanding that mediumship oftentimes comes from almost the same space as imagination, right? So they just can't. Some people can very quickly key in and build that image or receive that image. Other people, they're just like, they're fighting it. They can't see anything. They're telling you they cannot visualize. And so I know in the past, Danny has done some really good spirit guide artwork. Now you've got some people who'll be able to validate, yes, this is the guide that I'm working with. Other people, that can be a really good tool if you're struggling, a newbie struggling to connect and see a spirit guide. That can be a really good tool to hook them in, like a point of reference. Right, okay, I got you. I see you. I kind of get a feel for you. And then they can bring that image in. Do you know what I'm trying to say? I can't find the words. They can bring that in and develop a relationship that way. I don't know if, Dan, you want to say anything about your process of how that information comes to you when you do your artwork?
Yeah, it's fine. And to the earlier question as well, like who do you know them or what have you? So I find that a lot of the time the guides will come in and it'll be to help with development. They'll be helping with connecting. They'll be to sort of push someone on a little bit further, I find as well. But when I'm drawing, Kath, you've drawn as well, haven't you? It's just there. You are seeing this person, and even with reading, sometimes when something's come in, I thought, oh God, yeah, they don't. You know that they don't know them, but there's this person. They are there for a reason, and it'll be. I don't know. I don't want to say someone's lacking something, so they'll come with it to sort of show them. But it is a bit of that, really. It's a bit of sort of, you know, just nudging someone on. And a lot of guides, you'll find that yes, when they do come through, they have got a spiritual act. There's something there spiritual, because it's just to sort of help them develop, especially if they're seeing as well, especially if they're starting to sort of pick things up and what have you. It will be to just nudge them on a little bit. Like Kath, you did a drawing the other day, didn't you? And it was like, oh God, it was a guide that I'd had years and years and years ago, hadn't even thought of, and until I saw that drawing, it was like, oh, I know now. And I believe that's because I've started doing a little bit more again. I've started reading more again, where, you know, I've had a bit of a break and come back to it. Now, he came when I first started reading, so it makes sense why he's around and when he's around, you know. So I think it is just they're there to help. So, you know, granted, you know, like Dave, you said your nan could be there, but if, you know, if they weren't a reader, if they weren't, you know, in the same situation that you are, which, you know, your family aren't going to find themselves in the same situation here that you are always, then it's going to be someone who can offer a bit of insight into that, because that's what they do, the guide, you know. That's all it is. Okay. Kath, you're muted.
I thought I'd pressed her, sorry. Maggie Atkinson wants to know, have you ever seen an angel? And have you ever got direct messages from them? Anybody? Any takers? Dave?
I'm going to sound a bit mad now, but I'm going to say it anyway. When I was, and I told my family this many years ago, and I think they think I was a bit mad. I remember must have been about 7 or something, and my teeth were coming out, so I had like a gap in my teeth. And as you do, you put your tooth under the pillow. The fairy comes, you get your pound coin under the pillowcase. They take your tooth. Now I have a vivid memory of waking up and seeing the back of this person walk out of the door. So it was at night time, obviously, but the back of this person, they were dressed in white and had long blonde hair. Now, neither my mum or dad are blonde, right? And neither my mum or dad have white long dresses. Well, at least I hope my dad doesn't, else I'll be a bit worried. Anyhow, I remember seeing it just walk out the door and then just disappear. Now, I don't know, I was 7, so that was a memory that's lasted in my mind. I remember saying that to my mum or something. She just looked at me like, I'm a strange child. But that's the only time I've ever seen. I know who my guardian angel is. I've got his name. But I don't really, I mean, I work with angels. I work with like Michael and Raphael and that kind of thing. But I've never really, apart from that experience, never really physically seen one. So that's
really wild that you just said that, Dave, and that you were 7, because only last night, like I'm wearing a Prince t-shirt today. Remember I had that dream visitation the night before that us guys were talking about yesterday regarding Prince. So last night I was like watching some Prince videos, some interviews and things, and he was talking to Tavis Smiley, and he said that when he was 7 years old, because Prince was born with epilepsy, he had approached his mum and said, I'm not going to be poorly anymore. And she said, how come? And he said, because an angel told me so. And I just, when you mentioned you were 7 and you saw this, I was like, oh my word, this came up for me last night with Prince.
Synchronicity.
Yeah. I'm going to mute my mic a second. I need to nip out the kitchen.
Next one. Another one? Yeah. I have, Shell Garcia-Vana says, I have a light in my kitchen that blinks on and off as if to communicate. It does this on occasions, but not constantly. Anybody have anything like that?
Well, I would trust that is spirit, because they're not going to do it all the time anyway. They will do it when they think they need to do it. It's happened to me. I've had light bulb. My nan was dying. My granddad had passed like I think 8 years before. 4 days before, 3 light bulbs in my room. And at the time I was house sharing, so I was in an ensuite bedroom. My lamp bulb blew, my main light bulb blew, and my bathroom light blew. So I had a shower in the dark, which is fabulous. But I knew that was him, because I went out and bought some more bulbs, and I came back to replace one of them, and the one that was in there worked. And it didn't work when I left the house. So I know it's my granddad had me laugh, because that was him anyway. So yeah, I would say, spirit, because they are energy, they can manipulate electricity, because electricity is energy. So they can manipulate. They can turn your lights on and off. They might put the kettle on for you, and I've heard that does happen as well. So yeah, they can manipulate electricity. So it does happen now and again. I would just look up and say, "Oh, thanks, I know it's you," and then leave it. It's not going to happen on a constant base. If it is constant, the logical part of my brain says, have your electrics looked at? Basically, I don't put everything down to spirit, because for me, spirit has to be random and has to be those moments where you're not expecting it. So it's not going to be a constant thing. So if it is just those odd occasions where you look up and go, well, my light's flickering, then I would say accept that as being a sign from spirit.
Right. So next one is from George. Shubravalu. Why do I often wake at the early hours of the morning for no particular reason? 3:30 to 4-ish usually. Now this happens to me a lot. I usually wake up at really random times in the night. And when I wake up at these times of the night, I've usually got something really fresh in my mind, and I'm just getting to the stage now where I've just always got a notepad at the side of my bed. because my dreams tend to be really, really vivid, and I know as I'm having them that I need to write those things down. So yeah, it's always between like 2:30 and 4:30 for me, because I think that's kind of like the witching hour. I tend to think of it as that's when we're kind of pulling in most information.
And you're right there, Kath. It is known as the witching hour, isn't it? Between 12 and 3 usually. There's a lot of different reasons that we can touch upon, but my understanding is, when it comes to the spiritual side, is that at 3 a.m, wherever you are on the earth, the earth's energy grids are at full capacity by 3 a.m. So particularly if you're on ley lines, nodes and things like that, it is, you're gonna feel it if you're sensitive to earth energies, even if you don't feel that you are sensitive. I say this all the time about the moon's energy. We cannot deny the effect that a full moon has on us. Full moon, blue moon, I think, on Saturday, isn't it, for Halloween? You know, the rise in incidents in A&E, police incidents, when there's a full moon, because we're more or less made of water. I can't remember how much percentage it is of the body, but a greater percentage made up of water. And so the moon affects the tides, has an effect on us, a physical pull on us, right? And emotional, like women's cycles. Yeah, lunar cycles. So what was I going to say about that? So the 3 a.m, where it pertains to my brother and to you, Kath, is usually where the Earth's energy grids are at their capacity. It is a time for creatives, right? For artists, creators. So if you are, for example, wanting to write a book, you're working on something, you're wanting to bring something into fruition, and you're waking at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, that is the time to get up and do it right then. I won't go into all the others, like the 3 o'clock in terms of like demonology, like being a mockery, because Jesus was said to have been crucified at 3:30, so that Satanism inverts everything. But let's not even bother going into all that, because if I wake at 3 o'clock, I know that's ascended master. I'm connecting with ascended masters. So it truly is a personal relationship with symbology, numbers, symbols. It's a personal relationship. What does it mean to you? Yes, you can ask for guidance. Yes, you can look up what that might mean in a Google search, but how does it feel to you? I don't know if Danny wants to offer anything on that, or if we're moving on.
You're on mute, love.
It, but it's not going. Sorry. Does anybody want to talk about setting boundaries with spirits? Shelley Rourke asked about that.
I can, but I don't want to dominate the conversation. So if Danny and Dave would like to offer something on it.
Yeah, really important to set boundaries with spirit. Very important. Because we are physical beings. We are still here. We are still down here. We're not ethereal beings yet. We're not meant to be in the spirit world yet. So you have to set those boundaries with spirit. I do. So for example, I have a rule with spirit that if I'm out and I'm doing my shopping, or I'm at a cinema, well, you can't really do it anymore, but you know what I mean. If I'm at a bar, restaurant, my rule is you don't connect with me, because when I'm out, I'm living my life and I'm doing earthly things, right? So I'm not like one of these, and none of us, anyone, these mediums that will go up to someone and say, "Oh, I've got a message for you, by the way." Don't do any of that, for many reasons. I won't go into that, but it's really important, because we still live. We still need to live a physical life, and actually, spirit communication can be quite draining, very draining, and we all know this. We all are exhausted. Because when you work with spirit, it's energy work, so you're pulling on each other's energy to get that communication without going into too much technical details. So we need to set those boundaries and say, no, not now. This is not the time for me to be working, because I'm out doing something. Or even if you're going to bed, I know many people say to me, David, why do I go to bed? I close my eyes and I start seeing faces. So you need to set those boundaries with spirit and say, no, this is my time for me, for my sleep, for my rest. I need that, so please go away. And I do say that to them. I say, no, not now, sod off. I need to go to bed, right? But you can be that frank about it, and I am. because it is about setting those boundaries. So you can't, I mean, some mediums are always open, but for me, I'm not, and I can't do that because I will be exhausted. I don't think it's necessarily healthy to be open all the time. So you have to have the balance correct, so you are living your life, and it's all about protecting your own energy. You need to protect your own energy, because if you're open constantly, then you're also living people's energy as well. So if your energy is open and you've got, you might be having a fabulous day, you then might speak to someone who's having a horrible day. You leave that conversation exhausted because you've just picked up on their energy, and it's just ruined your day completely. Well, it's not your energy to carry. So you really need to set those energetic boundaries in general, and not just boundaries with spirit, I would say.
Okay, so Elise Marie Graziano wants to know, have you ever seen a full-bodied apparition, and what did it look like? I think that you and I, Lou, saw the same one in one of our old flats once, didn't we? In there was a lady, I think you'd seen it first, and then I saw it like a few weeks later. That was a bit mad, that was. But it was just waking from sleep and just saw this lady just stood there at the edge of the bed. But she wasn't looking at me, and she wasn't like on the level that you'd expect her to be either. It was like she was kind of through the floor where she should have been. Do you know what I mean? Do you want to say anything about it?
I don't think I can really offer any more than what you have, apart from the fact that we both had, separate experiences of her. They were the same experience, where she was at the side of the bed. She was looking away from me. So I'm seeing this kind of profile of her. And it appeared as if she stood upright, but as if her legs were through the floor. Yeah, I can't say it any different to what you have. There was also in that same flat, that flat was spooky as shit. We used to have a guy who used to stand in the doorway of the lounge. Do you remember? Dark-haired guy, yeah, standing in the doorway of the lounge in our peripheral vision. And I know there's a question on the list about peripheral vision, so let's just tie it in here. My understanding, and please do offer your input as well, guys, is that scientifically, physiologically, and I can't remember all the correct terms because I ain't a scientist, but back in the day when humans were considered more prey, we used to be able to, our function to be able to see with our peripheral vision was more advanced or more leaned on, relied upon. So we used to be, because we'd be looking for predators, right? It's all to do with the rods and the cones in the eye on a physical level. So when we're seeing spirit, we're tapping it out to the corner of the eye. We can see something in the corner of the room, and then when we turn and look at it and it's gone, it's going back ancestral, years and years ago, where we used to use that function to be able to catch anything out the corner of our eye. And then when we turn, we're using a different part of the eye. I don't know whether it's the rod or the cone, but we switch in. And so we're not able to see it then because we're looking at it straight on rather than the peripheral vision. It's not that it's gone or disappeared. It's the fact that we're using a different part of our eye. I don't know if anybody else wants to add to that.
Kath, should we move on to the readings and answer a couple of questions on the readings section?
When you're doing a reading, do you ever keep information back if you think the information is too upsetting for the person to hear? Or do you just say it as it is? That's from Sheila Manning.
I can answer that. Well, what I do anyway, I don't know whether everyone else does the same. When you're reading, I get a lot of people, I walk in and they're like, oh my God, you're not going to tell me anything bad. You're going to tell me I'm going to die. And that because of all the hype around readers, psychics and what have you, and what you can see, and because some of them, they will say bad things to shock people into sort of not questioning them. They will say bad things, especially if they're sort of, struggling or what have you. But what I find is we are connecting when we're reading for you. I'm connecting anyway with the people who love you. They're not going to tell you that you're going to die a terrible death in 3 years' time. They're not going to want to frighten you. They're not going to want to do that. I'm not going to get that information. But you will get information that might be uncomfortable if it can help. So if I think, right, this is going to be helpful, if they're in a bad situation and something that I'm going to tell them is helpful, yes. If it's going to damage them, no. And very rarely have I ever had anything where I've thought, no, that's a bad idea. But 99% of the time, you're not going to get that. So because the people around them, they're not going to come through and think, right, I'm going to screw them over today. You're not going to get it. So when you're and that's a red flag for me, is, you know, somebody will say, oh, you know, I went to see this one and they told me this, and, oh, you know, it's around children all the time. I find it, they say, oh, you can't have kids, and you think, oh my god, no one's going to tell you that. You know, nobody who's reading is going to tell you that anyway, because, you know, Nana's not going to come through with that. So, you know, I don't know whether it's the same for everyone else, but I will say things, yes, they could be considered sort of uncomfortable at the time if there could be a good outcome from that. But, you know, I'm not going to say how you're going to die and when, you know, that's never going to come through. So there's.
You're on mute again, love.
I'm rubbish for this mute button.
I'm actually wondering, Kath, is there anything on that list? Because you're doing a fabulous job, apart from the fucking mute button. I'm wondering if there's anything on that list that you would like to answer, actually.
There is a question about sleep paralysis. That's something I used to get quite a lot, like through my late teens and into my early 20s. I got that quite a lot, and it used to absolutely terrify me. I know your mum used to have it as well, Lou, didn't she? Oh, it was horrible. It was like just this horrible sensation of someone being rested, like pushing down on my chest. But I'd want to move. I'd feel like I was awake, but I was asleep. No, I wasn't asleep. Yeah, it was kind of in between. It's really difficult to like describe. But as I went through it over the years, I found that if you just relax through it, just breathe and try and feel calm and centered and safe, then it just lifted off then. And as I concentrated and focused more on doing that, as I would feel it start to come over me, I would just switch into that headspace, and then it stopped. I didn't have it then as I got older. I don't know if anybody else has had any experience with it. Wants to say anything? Yeah.
Yeah, very quickly, because I think Dave just give us a cue that we've got 10 minutes left. Very briefly, lots of experience with sleep paralysis and clients who've had so. What I will say is my personal understanding of sleep paralysis, to mirror what you've said, Kath, is when you can breathe and relax into it, it does lift and you come out of it, okay? My understanding has been that sleep paralysis is, when you sleep, the brain shuts everything off. It immobilizes you so that you're not acting out 9 times out of 10, you know, sleepwalking and acting out your dreams, okay? It's for your own safety. However, when we sleep, this is what they don't tell you. When we sleep, when we nap, when we meditate, oftentimes, we go out to the body, we leave the body, right? Sleep paralysis then is when the physical body, the brain wakes up, but the etheric, the spiritual body, hasn't returned and realigned in time. And that's why you get that shudder or the drop when you feel like you're falling off something, and you've got the ringing in the ears and the whoosh, and you know, and anyone who's experienced sleep paralysis will understand what that is. It's realigning with the physical body, but not quick enough. So the experiences, if you're having the weird ones where you're seeing, like, you feel what you would describe as the crone or the demonic entity or whatever it is, and I know it feels very real, I know it, is because you're still out on the astral. You're still out on the, and there's a lot of ooga boogers on the astral. You know, there's some real savoury characters as well, but there's some ooga boogers. And so if you're feeling like in your physical body, I can't move straight away, or I can't breathe because perhaps you're face down on the pillows, just, you know, naturally in your sleep, fear kicks in. And you go straight to a fear dimension and experience. And that's what is happening. So like Kath said, as hard as it is, if you can think to yourself, relax, breathe, you're going to realign with the body and you'll come out of that experience. Over to you, Dave, because I don't know whether you want to wrap it up or carry on, love.
And I think we've got time for 2 or 3 more questions if we answer relatively quickly, get some out. So Catherine, if you want to look at maybe the experiences part, maybe. Oh, a video. Oh, there she is.
This mute button. What do you consider positives and negatives of being a medium or healer? I think personally that when you're doing things of service for others and you're helping somebody to heal something, I find that is healing me at the same time, because usually when you're connecting with somebody else, there's always some sort of middle ground that you've got some, well, I find anyway, when I connect with someone, that I've usually got some sort of experience which is similar that I can mirror or give help with, and through going through that process with them, I find that it can help to lift some of those feelings that I had myself. It's kind of like a reciprocal relationship, kind of, a lot of the time. What do you guys reckon? I feel like I'm rambling a little bit now. Anybody else want to talk?
I wouldn't say, when I first looked at that question, I want to hand it over to Danny actually, and obviously Dave. Perhaps we'll end on this if if we go into too much time. But when I looked at that question, I thought there are no negatives to the work we do. No negatives. I don't feel it. And then I thought, oh, hang on. If I was pushed to say, I would say the only negatives are the people who want to deliberately drain us, to overstep our boundaries. Look at us as performing monkeys, when we're out in public having dinner with our family, and they'll come over, no, you're a reader, and instead of, I've had one who repeatedly through the night kept calling me the psycho medium instead of psychic medium, and I don't even call myself a psychic medium, but kept saying just really bloody rude, or people who come and stick their palm under your nose, and you're like, I know they're only interested, and perhaps they're not necessarily typically rude people, but listen, I'm with my children, we're having dinner, time and place. If I was a hairdresser, you wouldn't present me with a pair of scissors now and ask me to cut your freaking hair. So, and I think it just all comes down to, so the mockery or the taking advantage of us, the performing monkeys, and all of that comes under the umbrella of misunderstanding, lack of knowledge, lack of awareness. Let's hand it over to Danny and Dave, though, because I know they'll both have experience with these things.
Yeah, I get what you're saying totally, and I think it's because when you read for somebody as well, it's so personal that lots of people think, oh, they know me then anyway, and I'll get messages, 2, 3 in the morning. They're normally drunk messages of what can I, and I think, oh my God, my phone's buzzing, I'm trying to go to sleep. But then the other side of it is, you do a reading, and some connections you don't forget because they're uplifting. That's the only, and I'm not a airy fairy person, but I find that I'd come home from reading and I'd get home late. I wouldn't be able to go to sleep because I'd be like on a high. I'd come in and love the whole evening and what I'd done. That feeling is brilliant. That feeling of especially bringing someone through and they are a really nice person. That's lovely, because that's the other side of it is if somebody passes away, their family, they love them, but they're not always nice people. So you do connect with some people and you think, oh God. You do connect with others and you think, oh my God, that's it. But I remember I'd get in and I'd be sort of at 2 o'clock in the morning thinking, go to bloody sleep, but I'd be still on a high wanting to tell everybody, oh, this happened and that happened, so that's lovely, and you feel that energy. But then, like you say, the other side of it is messages, because it's like I've been asked to read in Asda. I mean, what am I going to do in Asda? And not only that, I'm not keen on shows, because I think making something public that shouldn't really be public sometimes, you know, and you don't know what's going to come through, or, you know, so that side of it, yeah. And then and the public side of it. But like I say, the actual readings, and especially if it's a meaningful reading, I mean, I the amount of times I have been involved in somebody's arguing and bickering because they've come and said, well, what do you think about this person? And then and I think, oh my, don't want to know. You know,
Yeah.
you know, you want to do something that means something rather than get involved in it's the petty side of life that I'm not interested in, you know. So I think that's it for me anyway. So I don't know about Dave, what you like about it all.
No, it's mirroring what you girls have said. It is. I kind of get a kick out of helping people. For me, feedback is really important, and people leaving reviews. And it's not for ego. It's not to, oh, leave me a review to see how fabulous I am. I'm very self-critical, and I'm a perfectionist, and to my detriment sometimes. But I just like that the feedback of. And people said to me, you've changed my life, or, you know, I've been miserable for 10 years, but since this message, you've really uplifted me and I've changed. And so those kind of feedbacks, they really make you understand why you do it. So no matter what the skeptics have got to say, they can't change the fact I've just helped someone almost change their life. And that's not in an egoic way, but it's when people say things like that to you, or when you bring through children that are past, right? God forbid should ever happen to us. But these parents, they have that such a lift knowing that they haven't anything to feel guilty for, you know, that the child is safely in the world of spirit, and things like that really make you think that is why I do this. Then on the other side, like as you girls have said, you have those energetic vampires, or you know, people that expect, oh, can you read me? Well, actually, no, I can't, because I'm busy. Do you know what I mean? It's just that, or they expect you to. I sometimes feel the pressure to perform, like, come on, perform now, or I want to speak to my dad. You speak to my dad. I can't pull your dad through. I don't have a psychic line, a direct dial to your dad, not on my speed dial. Do you know what I mean? It's those kind of things that are not the best experiences, because then you feel under pressure, and it doesn't work like that anyway. And as Lou said, it's about the lack of education, people just not understanding actually how this works. So those bits are not so fun.
And we can't decide who comes through either, can we? That's the other, like you say, to perform. And if they don't come, it's not my fault.
No, exactly. We're not rubbish because we haven't got that person through. You can't pick and choose. But anyway, ladies, that's it. We are running out of time. We're shortly going to cut off. So I want to thank you all for coming on and answering, and Kath for doing the little moderation there. Thank you very much. So girls, say goodbye for now, and I will see you in a minute.